Good morning. So do I have sound? So I'm going to sit down. For those watching online, just so you know, it's been interesting getting things set up this morning in the snow and everything, but welcome here this morning. You know, the last time I did this, we had a snowstorm too. So for the farmers, they probably like this, but for everybody else, you probably don't want me to share anymore. My name's Dave Thiessen. I work with Children's Camps International. To give you a little bit of background about our organization, first, we're going to play a video. Jaden, if you want to play that video. And hit it one more time.
Jesus said, "Let the little children come to me, and do not hinder them, for the kingdom of heaven belongs to such as these." The struggles of poverty can lead to feelings of hopelessness, but knowing Jesus gives hope. Hope that remains firm even in the circumstances of poverty. This hope can change individual lives and whole communities. For 20 years, Children's Camps International has been sharing the hope of the gospel with vulnerable children through partnerships with local churches and community leaders in developing countries. Children's Camps International provides resources for them to start and expand camp ministry. They not only deliver children's camps, but also ongoing mentoring and discipleship for children and their families.
I like this kind of ministry that work with children because I love children. The kids who come to the camps and they believe in Jesus, they have a good conduct. They become a new person. They share their joy with their family and their friends. And thanks God for your support, and may God bless you all.
Over the years, children who attended CCI camps have been equipped with hope and purpose, and many have now grown up to become a force for positive change as leaders in their communities and nations.
Yes, so after a camper, I became a counselor, like to learn how to teach the kids to follow Jesus, to dance and sing a song and share the gospel.
Thanks to the many generous supporters, by the grace of God, 3.7 million lives around the globe have been changed through the ministry of Children's Camps International. Over the course of its ministry, Children's Camps International has been able to partner with 5,600 local churches in 10 different countries and is currently active in Brazil, Cambodia, and India. CCI's longest-running ministry is in India, where we have 4,200 church partners, and where Children's Camps International's first camps opened in 2003. Today, we celebrate 20 years of partnering with the local church in developing countries, 20 years of empowering and raising up young leaders, 20 years of reaching millions of children with the message of Jesus Christ. We celebrate 20 years of hope. And we invite you to join us over the next 20 years as we continue to reach children around the world.
So that video was put together here this last summer, and since then things have changed a little bit, but that gives you kind of a context of where we are as Children's Camps International, of what we're doing. We are just celebrating our 20th year. 20th year in bringing the message of Jesus Christ to the nations. If you want to hit the next slide, Jaden, next one. Give you a little bit of background, next one. We've just reached just over this last year 355,000 kids with the message of Jesus Christ in 2023. Next one. Just over 4 million kids now have heard the message of Jesus Christ since it started. Putting it into context, I'm a numbers guy. I love numbers. But if you were to stretch these kids out hand to hand, stretching out like that, they would start now in Vancouver to get 4 million kids. You now would stretch across past Calgary, past Winnipeg, past Thunder Bay, and you actually now are at Toronto. You have to drive 39 hours to see each and every face that has been impacted by the ministry of Children's Camps International. How God is working. Next. All for a cost of $5 a child. I think that's the next one that's on the screen is $5 a child. Next. Our vision, mission, it is fueling the fire for Jesus Christ. That's what our mission is. Our vision is to partner with the local churches, bringing a dynamic camp ministry program to the kids where we disciple them. Discipleship is key and critical to us as we do what we are called to do as a ministry. Next slide. I think a list in there that talks about discipleship is one of the things, which of our pillars. It's a week-long camp ministry is what we do, followed by discipleship next. All for a cost of $5. That's what it is, $5 for an entire year. It's under $5 for a kid to experience camp and as well get fed every week. So people say, how are you guys doing it for $5? Like, how is this even possible? It's one of the number one questions I get. To understand what our goal is empower the church, the local church. And the local church in country is empowered. We help them, we kickstart them, and then they take over. So today, in the countries we serve, they're covering about 75 to 80% of the costs just themselves. In India, what they will do is people will bring food for the kids to eat and other supplies. Churches will offer to do different aspects. And so they're owning it. And that's our goal. When we're all said and done, our goal is that they don't need us anymore and they can be turned loose. As we say, there's still another 186 countries to reach. So the next one. Here's a picture of Brazil. You'll see Brazil on the map. We just finished a trip there. Jan and I and a team from Saskatchewan went down to Brazil. It was a group of farmers, and we kind of did a combination of seeing the ministry in action in Brazil and as well did a little bit of sightseeing, which we're going to show you because it gives you context of the country. Next one. Next. Our leaders in country, they're Marco and Claudia Marino. They are leaders. They've been leading the ministry since 2016. We partnered with them. They had already been developing programs in the country, and we saw a real synergy between the two of us together. Currently, they're operating 1,277 small groups in their country. We are now located in all 26 states. Next one is all 26 states within Brazil. And we are also, next slide, programs now, which I did not know up till about 6 months ago. They're running programs in Paraguay and now in Mozambique as well. So they have now stretched their ministry beyond their borders and are now going into other countries. These Portuguese-speaking countries is where they are. Next slide. Okay, so just go back one. I know it goes fast. Okay, so you'll see in the picture here a bunch of little pinpoint dots of where we were in the country at that time. We started off in the capital, which is Brazilia. Brazilia is the capital of Brazil. Crazy story on it, which I did not know till we went there, is Brazilia was not a city until 1956. There was nothing there. They decided we're going to make a capital city, and since 1956 to today, they have built this massive city. It's a government city is what it is. And these are some of the other points as well. You're going to see the dots, and I'll speak on each of these as we go here. Next slide. Yes, here is Ivane. I can't show you all the different leaders that we had, but there are some ones that I wanted to show you so you could get a perspective of who these people are. Ivane became a Christian about 19 years ago. Passionate. She has a drive that is unrivaled by anybody that I know. She has such a passion for kids. She works just outside of Brazilia and a few of the other smaller communities. She's currently running 16 groups. She is working alongside 16 different groups with kids. Next slide. Here we come into her community, and when we came into the community, there was nothing there. We drove in, we're wondering what's going on, and then all of a sudden the kids showed up. A lot of these kids that you're seeing in the picture, they're from fairly poor situations. They're not of any level of influence. This is only 20 minutes outside of the capital of Brazilia, where you see these kids that a lot of cases, don't have a whole lot. And they come to the programs to experience the love of Jesus Christ. Next. Here's Jan with a couple of the girls from the program. As you can see, these kids, they just have such beautiful hearts, and it's really cool kind of getting to know them. The one thing that shocked me is we go to our other countries, English-speaking people are everywhere. Here in Brazil, finding an English-speaking person is almost impossible, including the airport, where you think for sure. When we were checking out, trying to check in to go for an in-country flight, without our interpreters, I think we would have ended up in Kyrgyzstan or something like that. I'm not sure. Next one. Here are a couple of the guys that came on the trip, families. One is Rod Thiessen, Marv Hildebrandt. Their wives came as well, Pam Thiessen, and then Talita Hildebrandt. And there's some pictures with them with some of the kids at the program. Next slide. Here is a really neat young man. I got the chance to know him and get to meet him. His name is Jose Arthur is his name. Jose, really cool kid. He had memorized 32 verses this year, and he was so excited to be able to share with us about those verses that he had learned, and just his joy that he had. You can see in his hand, he's got a little piece of paper. You can barely see it, but he has a little piece of paper in his hand. That piece of paper is, when they memorize verses, they get points towards what we call our fairs, where kids can come in and buy, toys or something along that line. He's hanging on because they're just going to go into a fair where they can buy different things. Just so you know, a bunch of the stuff that you donated from the churches were at these fairs. And you'll see some of them. If you see your item, let me know. Send me a text or a thumbs up that you got it or whatever. Next slide. Here's one of the programs. This is one of the small groups. This is, there's a lady, I do not know her name, I forgot it. But this was her small group. Her son was in it, along with a few other kids. And what they do with their group is they will meet on a weekly basis, probably in the house. Sometimes they meet here at this location, and then they be able to share kind of what about the learning, and then also they also work on an online training where they are learning the biblical truths, to Bible memorization, to stories and everything else. In country in Brazil, they have developed 3 years of biblical training, now all in Portuguese, and they're actually working on year 4 and 5. So every child has 5 years of curriculum. We've asked them, and they're well into the process, converting it all to English. It'll be available in English to all the English-speaking countries. So they've been working hard on that as well. Next one. This is Brazil. As you can see in the picture here, you're going to see there's some of the leaders that are present, and this is a typical situation in Brazil. Both the ladies in the middle that you see, their husbands left them. The trend, at least where we are working and what we're seeing today, is a lot of split families. I'd say 70% of the families are split that we're working with today, where the husband is left in a lot of cases. And so these two ladies were busy developing, working alongside the kids. They're running small groups because they saw the impact that it had on their kids. The lady that is holding her son, she was sharing with us. She said, I sent my son to this event, to this program, and he said, he came back, it was different. He actually said, please, and thank you, and didn't know what was going on, so she had to come and see for herself. And when she saw the difference it was making, she transformed her life as well, and she became a Christian and walking alongside with the Lord. Next slide. Here's some of the items in the fair. This would be some of the items that the kids could potentially be buying. And the next slide. Here's a kid going through an item with one of our leaders. This is Claudia Nunes. She is one of our supervisors as well, works at this location and at, I think, 15 or 20 other locations as well. She's working, this boy is trying to decide, do I buy this little toy or do I buy the one that's beside it? So it was a cool picture of the kids now, after they worked hard, got their money for memorizing verses, now we're able to spend that money on getting something that would make a difference for them. And a lot of times what I saw was they were actually buying items for their brothers and sisters. They would buy a toy. The one, and I don't have the picture in there, we're at one of the fairs, and in there are glue sticks. There's about 10 glue sticks sitting on the table. I took a picture pre and then after. And when the fair was done, one glue stick was left. They were buying things that they could use, that they could share with their family to do things together. And so it was really cool to watch these fairs. It was not just all about the items, but it became, it was a place of community for these kids. Next slide. Yes. Here is a really neat boy. His name is Pedro Hu, and he had to show me his cards. He had to show me his memorized cards that he had memorized these verses. And he came from a fairly poor community, very, very poor community. But he was so excited to be able to show me, these are my memorized. This is what I memorized in the name of Jesus. Next one. So we did do a little bit of touring. This is Brazilia, the capital. I want to show you a few pictures. This was day 3. We were delayed one day leaving Saskatoon, so we were hoping to leave, but due to plane issues, we were delayed one day. So I missed speaking at one engagement. But on day 3 here, we stopped in Brazilia, which is the capital. This is actually a Catholic church that they built. This was built, I forget the year it was built, but the next picture on the inside, it was an incredible, from a building perspective, was a beautiful, beautiful building. And this is right in the heart, in the center of Brazilia. It is in that area where they did a lot of the expansion. Maybe 30 years ago, it was embraced. Today, the church is not embraced. Today, a church in Brazil, you cannot build a new church in Brazil today, Brazilia today. The capital, no land is allocated. Even if there was land available, they're not allowed to build another church or any other religious building inside their city at this time. So they've really clamped down on any kind of growth of a church inside their city. So yeah, they have challenges too as well within the city. Next slide. This is some of the pictures of Brazilia. There's a man-made lake that you'll see besides a beautiful lake that they built, and then there's walkways and everything else. So this is just their country. This is who they are. Next one. This was the only church in Brazilia. It's a Baptist church that was built before they came into regulations. They meet 4 or 5 times a week, run 2 to 3 services on a Sunday, seat about 400, and it is the only church in Brazilia. They've started another church, but they took over a different religion building, and they've converted it. That's the only way they can build another church today. So there are people seeking in their country. Next slide. This is the pastor of that church. His name is Pastor Aaron, is his name. And that's one of the guys that came with us, Marv Hildebrandt. So now if you look at the picture, if you take a look at the picture of Marv, do you know who everybody thought he looked like? Donald Trump. So they all wanted a picture with Donald Trump. So everybody, everywhere we went, everybody thought he was Donald Trump. So we made a saying, he's going to make Canada great again. So that was our saying with Marv, and we had a lot of fun along the way. But yeah, everywhere we went, they wanted a picture with Marv. Oh, Marv's going to hate me for saying this online, but oh well, I have to do that. Next slide. In the evening, we went to a program. This, what you see on the screen, half the people in this room are currently running programs. The other half of the people in the room were looking at trying to look at running these programs. They'd heard about the ministry. We're looking at how do we get involved, and we were doing a teaching session on this with them. It was pretty incredible to go to kind of give you perspective. In this room, there's a guy at the back door watching to make sure people don't come in, right? It was not a safest location. It's not an area where we would walk around in, but it was an area of need. There was massive need in that community, and they were making some massive impact on changing the lives of kids through the program. So, this was now, I forget, we were about 9 o'clock at night. We hadn't had supper yet. We still had to have supper. So an average day, just so you know, started at about 6 and then would end about 10:30, 11 o'clock at night. So it was a pretty intense time, but it was good. It was very good. Next slide. Here are some of the leaders. These are currently programs that we're running from that church. These would be leaders and some of the small group leaders and teachers. They work hard at making sure that they're discipling their kids well. In fact, one of the things that really surprised me is whenever we talked to somebody, didn't matter if they were 80 years old or they were 12 years old, everybody could tell you who they were discipling. Who is my disciple and who is discipling me? Even at the age of 12, they could tell us. So there's a real huge impact on making sure that we are building that next generation, building in, doing the hard work of discipling. So we started in Brazilia, and then the team broke into two groups. One group stayed because they were running another program, and Jan and I decided to go on this other team. We didn't know what it was going to be like first, but we decided that, hey, we're going to go on this other group. It was 400 kilometers away from Brazilia, heading into the mountain region. And it was an experience that it's hard to describe to you. What we saw and the passion that we saw in that village, the Kalungus village, to kind of give you an idea, and maybe the next one, I think we'll do the next one. We're coming into that just as a video. If you want to play that, just put it on. We came in, it's a rainy season, it rained lots. So it was raining hard during that time. I was thinking, how do I bring that rain back to Saskatoon? And the whole time, because it was raining. But this community, context of this community, back in about 200 and some years ago when the slaves were brought over from Africa into America, there were also slaves brought into Brazil. And so a lot of the people in this community fled from their slave owners and fled into this mountain region to hide. And this is where they set up communities. You want to hit the button again? This is kind of a view of what this area looked like. There was very mountainous regions. Next one is a video, if you just want to hit it again. Kind of give you perspective. The green is a green that you can't describe here. It's just a beautiful, beautiful area. But it's very remote. We had to drive down about 15 kilometers of roads that were not necessarily the best roads, to say the least. But here we are, we're in this community. The leader, Ivane, which you guys met earlier, in that other picture, this is a community that she was called to. The people of this community had a vision of her coming, and she didn't want to do it. She didn't want to go. She said, I don't want to go there. I just don't want to do this, but Lord said you need to go. And in it was one of the most beautiful things that we saw was how God called her through a vision to this area, and she was there. They were praying through. And if you've met Ivane, her life previously, I don't know all the story, but she's full of tattoos. And so in that community, that was, okay, that's kind of taboo. But here's this lady, Christian lady, but she shared about how the fact that God called her here. And they saw it, and they discussed it. And so they invited her and her husband into this community. Next slide. This is the spiritual leader of that community that made the call. And she is 85 years old. She did not look 85 years old, but she had a heart and passion. Her husband currently isn't a Christian. She's been praying for him the entire time. But when we came into the community, this was our first stop. And we came there, she wanted to pray for us, and she anointed us with oil and prayed. There's a peace that came over me when she prayed that I cannot describe. There's a presence of God that I can't put into words that came over, but it was a very special moment for me when she prayed for us and anointed us with oil and welcomed us to her community. Next slide. It's a video as well. This is where we were with the kids. It was pouring rain, but the kids came out. They had to walk, probably half a mile, just about a kilometer, to where this area was. It was raining hard. It was raining inside as much as it was outside. But this was one of the fairs that we were doing with these kids. And these kids don't have anything. They have nothing. It's a very remote, very poor area of the country, and foreigners are not welcomed. Because they've been hurt in the past. And so they don't necessarily, foreigners are looked on as skeptics when they come into their community. Next slide. Here's some pictures of the kids. The smiles do not do justice to the smiles that they had in their hearts. Next one. Here's some more of the kids. Next one. This picture. Okay. This is Ivane's husband. His name is Julian. Quiet, shy guy. But just a powerful experience was held with Julian when we were there. I got to know him, spent 3 days with him. I think he is a Ferrari driver because he was driving 140 clicks an hour the whole time. Thought we were going to die a few times. But along the way, though, if you look at him with those kids, he is their dad. He's not, but he is their dad. He has a massive love for those kids that you cannot describe. Next picture was probably the one that got me the most. Every kid, as we were standing there, and not just all, they would all slowly come up, one at a time, different times, and he would hug them. And he would hold them like a father would hold their kids. And that was showing the love of Jesus Christ. It was beautiful. Made a good friend with him. He likes hunting too, so we're going to go hunt alligator next time I go with him with spear because they're not allowed guns. So I may not come back next time. So we'll see. Next picture. Here's another picture of some of the kids from that community. Next one. Yeah, I just took lots of pictures of these kids. I just thought it was pretty special. For me, it was. Next one. Yeah, this is a kid he just bought with some of his money that he had earned from memorizing verses, a pair of sandals. He was excited to get a pair of sandals, a new pair of sandals. Just so you know, again, I'll say it one more time. If you have a question, you can text me at 306-261-7285 if you have a question, if you forgot my phone number, or look up in the church book. This would be the group of the kids that are being taught here. There's the leaders and the kids. And there's in there 2 groups that they would be meeting on a regular basis where they would be meeting weekly, minimum Bible memorization, working through scripture. And it was a really beautiful time. Jan and I had there together, and we had to come back to the other group and try to share with them what we experienced, which no words can describe. There's no words I can share with you unless you were there, because you'd be weeping with us as you saw kids with love that it just was indescribable. The next slide. Here's in that same community, it was another group. That community is fairly large. Just so you know, the community isn't just a small village like the size of Dalmany. There's a village with some houses, and then you go 15 kilometers over, and there's another part of this village that there's different segments. And this was another one of the groups that we met with, a little bit smaller. There was 6 kids not present in this group, but they loved Jesus, and they were memorizing verses, sharing them with us. The kid that was the most interesting kid to me was a guy, I think he's in a gray shirt, off on the right-hand side. His name was Alexander. He is going to be a leader. He is set to be a leader. You can tell his giftedness, but just a fun personality, and he wouldn't smile in the pictures. He would just sit there and look, but just an incredible leader. I think I got him a little bit of a smile. Next one. Here are the kids at the fair. This is where they were buying after they memorized their verses, different items, and they were looking at it. And and wanting to buy different items. And so this was another one of the fairs that we did. Next slide. Yeah, so we had sent some Canada tickets along. Somebody had done some stickers. Well, those stickers they were stuck on everybody, everywhere. So those Canada stickers, they loved Canada. They loved the stickers, and they were all excited about showing those to us. This is the group. This is the leadership group at this one. Ivani's wearing that green jacket in the middle, and then beside her is the leader for that one. And a lot of times what we saw were the ladies led. The ladies were in the leadership role inside the camps. Some guys, but mostly the women were leading. First time in that community that the man stayed home to take care of the kids. It shocked the community. When she stepped into the role, he chose to care for the kids while she was leading. It's actually somewhat transformed that community because that doesn't happen. The man does not stay home in that community. It's the lady's job to do that. So it was a transformation moment in many ways within that community. Just so you know, we were driving here to get to this place. We were driving down a road and we were stopped. And we were told to turn around. They did not want us there. If we were to stay driving on the road, they were going to potentially do things to us. So we had to turn around, respected it, and took a different road, which was more complicated, to get here. So there's opposition. As much as there is lots of good stuff happening, but through the opposition, we're seeing the church grow. When the church experiences the opposition, and when those kids are experiencing, there's growth that you cannot describe that's taking place. Next slide. This is the next day. Sunday, we're actually at a Baptist church in just outside of Brazilia. We came back home. We drove back that day yet and got in late. And then we were this is a graduation ceremony. These are kids that they were more affluent area, but these kids just finished 3 years of curriculum and all graduated. This was a graduating class. You may see one big guy in there, Rod Thiessen. He had to get in the picture. And so Rod was in there too with his hat. And we do have a video of them throwing their hats in the air and stuff too, but I don't have that here for you today. But this was a graduating class. Next slide. This was another group of kids that met on a regular basis that came to this church to encourage the ones that graduated. They came here just to encourage the kids and give them high fives after they finished graduating their 3 years of curriculum. Next one. Here's the graduating class. We went out for supper or lunch with them, and we spent time together, and this is where we just got to know the kids, and it was a lot of fun just seeing their hearts and their passion to just know Jesus. Next slide. You'll see here the graduating class with all their items and everything else that is there as well as on that slide. I actually got a question online. This is exciting for me. I've never done this before. So I'm going to take the question, I'll read it, and then go from there. Was the road blocked by government or locals? The roadblock that was there, if we're talking about that community we're in, the Congas community, the roadblocks that are there, it's a community roadblock. There is government blocks to Christianity being shared, but there were roadblocks that we experienced because the people, they've been hurt. They were abused like slaves, and they have an anger towards the people there. In fact, we were driving down a road, and Julian, who was our driver, said, there's a road that they've built, that you drive down, and you can't see it, but you drop into a 250-foot drop. And when people drive down this road and they fall in there, they just leave them. Okay? That tells you the kind of the environment they're in. So I'm glad I wasn't driving. So Julian, I don't think I would have survived driving in Brazil. So yeah, that roadblocks was local. So there were people there that didn't want the gospel to be presented. Yeah, we saw it in many ways. Yeah, next slide. Okay, this is a video. Okay, before you play it, if you haven't started, okay, before you play it, context. We went from The last video that I showed, the ones I showed you, these are kids that have. They've come from families that have been done very well, but they have the love of Jesus. We went from there straight to this community to where they had nothing. And we'll play the video first, and then I'll give you context. Today, we drove up some interesting roads to come into a rural community where they're hosting one of the follow-up programs with the kids. We're just going to head in now, and I'm just going to show you kind of what that looks like. They're heading in, and the kids have such joy as we come to serve. So this is the community we walked into. In this community, most of the dads are not present. They're not present in any of these kids' lives. It's just usually the ladies that are there. Alcoholism is a major problem in this community. Drugs are a major problem in this community. Half the ladies in this picture, they're ladies of the street. They bring their kids because they see the difference that it makes in the lives of their kids. It makes a massive difference. It was one of the times, there was all these different pinnacle moments where these were little aha moments for me. This was one that was really special to me as well. They all were in their own way, but the next slide. Here is a girl. Her name is Angelina. Angelina is 15 years old. At the age of 13, started leading her first group. She had 8 kids in her group, and under the supervision of Claudia Nunes. Claudia would check in, make sure, teaching biblically solid and all these other things. But she had a joy to serve, and she wanted to serve. And so at the age of 13, started leading her own group and was so happy to be able to do it. The next slide is her sister, Anna. She's 16. She as well was leading groups in her community. They both don't know their dad. They don't have a clue who their dad is. Their mom was an alcoholic, prayed through it, and she came to know Jesus as a personal Savior. And they shared that story with us, and she's now involved with the camps. Her grandma got them involved. And then from there, they got involved, and from there are continuing to invest in the kids. Next slide. Here is a boy. This is another boy who memorized a pile of verses, and he wanted to share with me those memory verses, those memory cards. It was very special for them to be able to show us, this is what I've learned. This is what I'm learning. Next one. Okay, don't touch it yet. There's a video here. Before I play this video, I have to share this. This community, we go there, and they're doing their memorizing, they're doing a bunch of other stuff, and then they tell us they're going to show us a waltz. This is what they learned, was a waltz. And I'm sitting there as I'm being told that they're going to teach us a waltz. I'm thinking, how is this biblically tied? Like, how are they doing this? How is this bringing this story of Jesus to them? Well, it was one of the most beautiful things I ever saw. Is these guys, you can play it now. These guys were learning the respect of a woman. None of these guys have a man mentor in their life. They were learning, and they were leading the dance. They were leading the women, and they were teaching them what respect was. And so they were teaching, and the waltz was one of the most beautiful things that I saw being done to bring the message of Jesus. And they were using dance to accomplish it. And so to me, it was one of the special moments. There was many, but that was one of the special moments to see it in a community that is quite broken. And so they were using what worked, and it was really special. I will hit the button because it goes for 4 or 5 minutes, and I don't know if you want to watch waltzes for 4 or 5 minutes. I enjoyed it, but for me, it was using. Sometimes we think we have to do it a certain way to bring the message of Jesus. What does God lay in your heart? What does God ask you to use? Sometimes it may be something totally unconventional, but you want to use what God is entrusting you. And they laid on their hearts, and it was huge for them. Here's the fair. This is one of the kids at the fair. This toy came from Dalmany. I'm not sure whose it was, but that was one of the ones that came from Dalmany. She was She, for 5 minutes, this other lady was busy dealing with him. She was so concerned she was going to lose this stuffed animal. So she was hanging on tight to it. And finally, it was her turn to be able to buy it. And she bought it, and it was a pretty special moment for her to be able to have that stuffy animal. So if whoever that is, thank you for donating it. Makes a massive life, changing lives. Next. Here's some of the kids. This is one of the boys from that community. That's Talita Hildebrandt. She was one of the team members down from Swift Current that came down. And these are, just one of the boys, just excited. You can't see it in his face, but he's excited to be there. And he was right involved. He was one of the guys dancing, doing the waltz. Next slide. So from there, we wrapped up our time in Brazilia, which is the capital area. We saw a number of programs. Week 1 is over. We're into week 2, and now we're heading down into the southern part, Curitiba area, and then from there into an area, a city called Paramira, which is an hour straight west of Curitiba, is where we spent the rest of our time there. Mixture of programs and as well some of the sightseeing stuff as well. So I'm going to share a little bit of that with you as well. So the next one. Food. I think I gained 10 pounds, and I don't gain weight very easy anymore. That pizza, I cannot describe to you that pizza. That is not what you think. It's the size of a wagon wheel. It fed 11 of us, and there was leftovers. So the context of the size, it filled the whole table. And so there's fruit pizza. There was a number of different ones in there as well. So we had lots of food. There was no shortage of food the entire time. Churrascos were, next one. Yeah, okay, go back one. I hate to do this one, but I have to. For those that are old, the guy wearing the hat, who does he look like? Skipper. Yeah, I know. The owner of this churrasco found out we were from Canada, so he invited us into his kitchen and gave me his hat. He walked around that hat, so while I was eating my food, I had to look like Skipper, so that's now my new nickname. So there, the churrasco, on an evening, they feed 5,000 people in an evening. And so they have 360 kilograms of beef or chicken or something cooking at all times. Next one. This is a kind of where Jan and I were actually in 2 different countries at the same time. We're standing there together. Jan is in Brazil and I'm in Paraguay. We are actually side by side. This was actually one of the, it's a power plant that Paraguay and Brazil built together. And so we were in the power plant, and it's right down the middle is where it was built. And actually half of it's staffed by Brazilians, half of it is staffed on the other side by Paraguayans. So that's one of the areas we went to. Next. We spent some time at a Mennonite colony. So here I am coming from Canada thinking colony. What is a colony? You know, like we were trying to put our minds around. We didn't know what it was like before we went. But a Mennonite colony, this was a colony of 2,500. So it's not like a colony, what we see here today, but it was a colony of 2,500 people. And it was a place where we spent about 4 or 5 days with different things. We had a chance, so the group that we had wanted to see some farming activities as well. So we'll go to the next one. This is a dairy we were at. I was texting Mitch Schultz pictures as I was there. We were communicating back and forth the entire time. So if you're watching this morning, Mitch, I got more stories for you about the dairy. This guy milked 1,600 cows a day, 3 times a day. 3 times a day. So it's a busy, busy dairy. Next one. That's their dairy. That's their rotating dairy where they milk cow. They automatically walk in. They don't have to be pushed in. They walk in, they go around, and they come out in 6 minutes later. So it's just one right after the other. Next picture. What blew my mind is the cleanliness of this dairy. Not that dairies can't be clean, but they ran a very clean operation. Next one. There's the cows resting after being milked. Next one. Part of the colony, their way of generating revenue streams, they actually have their own cheese factory. They create all the cheese, We couldn't bring cheese back with us. We were going to bring some. It was very good cheese. But they do cheese for most of the southern part of Brazil. It comes out of this factory here. So we did get a chance to sample a lot of cheese, which was really good. Next slide. This is a chocolate factory too. Chocolate was imported. They do make chocolate. They were creative in how they were doing their businesses. So we had different kinds of chocolates. It was tough day for Jan to be there eating chocolate. So yeah, she didn't like the coffee one. That was my favorite. Next one. This made Rod Thiessen's day, being able to stand in a field. This is a field of soybeans, probably one of the nicest fields of soybeans I've ever seen. We were in there, and yeah, that's just crops. Agriculture was way bigger than I thought. I thought we'd see some fields, but it was field after field of they grow 5 crops every 2 years. So it's 2.5 crops a year. Soybean, corn, wheat. Soybean, corn, and wheat. It just rotates around and around. Next slide. This made our farmers' day. They got to jump on some combines with guys that were harvesting. So that they were like little kids for getting a toy for the first time. They were having a lot of fun doing that. So these were some of the activities we did as well, and got to meet and create some good relationships with others along the way. Next one. That's another one of the combines. Next slide. There's no grain, like today where farmers have their bin systems at home. That doesn't exist there. They're all cooperatives. Everybody hauls into a large elevator system. So everything on the road, a third of the trucks in the road, a third of the vehicles were trucks hauling. That's all they were doing. They have no rail infrastructure. And so the roads were very, very busy. Next slide. This here, this is the boiler. That's how they dried the grain. They had a wood boiler. We used natural gas. They were feeding wood in because they can grow trees. They had tree farms, which we went to, where they would grow a full-size tree. Only takes 15 years there. That's it, because it never stopped growing. Where here, it takes 75 years to grow a tree the same size. There, it only takes 15 years. So they have lots of wood. So they use wood as their source for drying their grain. Okay, this is a funny picture. I know this. Believe it or not, there's a God story behind this. Just before I left, I broke a tooth off. And so here I am. You saw most of my pictures. I'm not smiling because I broken tooth. Well, this is a day we're going to go to the falls. It's called Foz Falls. I'm down having lunch when one of the guys taking us around introduces me to this pastor who is in the south. And we start playing the Mennonite game. And after we're done, we are actually third cousins. And here's a guy, and I look at it and say, that's just coincidence. Or you could say, it was really cool how God orchestrated that meeting with him. And we both laughed because we were both kind of embarrassed about our broken tooth. We were both able to smile and laugh about the fact we had broken teeth. He had a broken tooth too in the exact same location. But I look at those times and I say, there's so often in our lives we're busy doing life, and then something like this comes along and we just ignore it. I believe that was a God moment. I believe it was God's ability just to share with me somebody else to encourage me along the way. And so it was really special. Anyway, next one. We're going to run out of time. Next one. Just hit it. This is a video of the falls. These are Foz Falls. There's 178 falls running that day. 178 to 200. There can be as many as 300 falls. So one of the world's largest falls. And it was... we had a chance to see it. For if you ever go to Brazil, you've got to see it. It's right on the 3 borders, Argentina, Paraguay, and Brazil. Next one. This is the team that went. All of us, these are our drivers off to the side. We took a picture at the Mennonite colony. Next one. This boy. This was the last program we saw. They just started it 2 years ago. His mom was at this program, and her mom, and I have the testimony, she shared her testimony on the changed life of her son. She said he was a mischievous, troublemaking, never listened, to a point where she saw a total transformation in him. He shared with us, his desire is to be a pastor. He wants to influence and change his nation. We saw God at work. God is transforming lives, and he's working in the lives of so many different people. Next one. And the verse that We are fearfully and wonderfully made. Each and every one of us are fearfully, wonderfully made. We just got to remember that, just embrace it, and know that God has a plan for each and every one of you. In this country, he has a plan for each and one of those kids. We saw brokenness, but we saw him work in ways that you cannot describe. And with that I'm going to shut down. With that, I just want to say, if anytime you want me to come over to your house or to want more or want to have a coffee, talk about this more than willing to sit down and share the different stories within the countries of what's happening. In closing, just want to say one thing for us as an organization. We covet your prayer. God's laying on our heart to reach hundreds of thousands of kids. To 1 million kids, we know one day that's one way he's going. With it comes battles. We face spiritual battles that I cannot describe to you. And in it, I just covet your prayers. As a leader and as a staff, we covet your prayers, and we would love to have more people involved. We're looking for staff now. And if God's leaning or calling you to get involved, volunteering, whatever, talk to us. We have places where you can get involved with to impact the lives of kids. But I always say this: go where God calls you. Not just because I do for this ministry doesn't mean everybody has a call. Do your call. That's it. Thank you for listening. And it was really, we had, to be fair, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. We had about 12 people here. So that's good. Thank you. All right. See you at the service.